I'm very annoyed with myself at this moment. Hi, this is Barbara Jean. This is the third time I've tried to make this video, and I keep doing something that keeps turning off my camera. And so, I heard somebody out there. So it's annoying because I was on a roll. I was on a roll. Mm. So I've got to start over again. Good thing it wasn't that long. It was like 10 minutes, but still, 10 minutes to me, 10 minutes of talking for me is a lot. And so if I can't, it annoys me. I have to start over a third time. Okay, third time's the charm. Hi, fellow truth seekers. This is Barbara Jean. All right. Okay. Love endures all things. You don't understand why I said that in a second. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to tell you some dreams I had last night. Actually, early this morning. And I had a series of dreams, but some images were more clear than others. And the one I'm going to tell you about, a couple of dreams that I had that were rather interesting. And they're about letting go of childhood things. This one first series of dreams was about letting go of my past or letting go of childish things, which is interesting. So anyway, in the first dream that I had, or part of the series of dreams I had, I walked into what looked like a nursery room, like a preschool, a preschool room, and where you would, teach toddlers to interact with each other. Um, but there wasn't much furniture in this room. It was like it was almost empty. There was only a couple of things in this room. There was a large chalkboard on a roll in rolls, not the small kind of chalkboard, but a big chalkboard that had the rolling kind that you would have in a boardroom or a schoolroom. Um, there was also a couple of small child-sized chairs in one corner. There was a doll lying on the floor on another corner. And over on my left-hand side, there was a small table and chairs for toddlers, like 3 or 4 chairs sitting around a small set of chairs sitting around a table. And excuse me. um, yeah, so in this uh, room, I thought, well, let me go get the doll that's lying on the floor in one corner and see if I can get some order out of this room. That was the first thing that came to my mind. I was trying to make this room look a little better than it did because it looked empty and deserted. And so I went over and I picked up the small doll to put the doll in the chair around the table. And so when I put the doll on the table, on the chair, even the weight of the doll was too heavy. It wasn't a big doll, it was a small doll. And I put the doll on this chair and it broke. The chair broke, like in um, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Okay? Goldilocks and the Three Bears is like that. And so the chair was fragile and it broke. And I noticed that the furniture of this little table set was broken. It was not going to support anybody's weight. It was completely useless. Um, so that was an interesting moment. I thought, okay, well that's no good anymore. I can't use that's not even usable. I was thinking maybe you could get someone to fix it. Um, and then I looked. My attention turned to the chalkboard. And the chalkboard was a green chalkboard, and there was yellow writing on the chalkboard. Now, most of the board was empty, except for in the left-hand corner of this chalkboard, there were seemed to be 4 or 5 lines. I can't remember exactly how many it were, but there were 4 or 5 lines of writing. And they were about that long on this chalkboard, and it was English lettering, um, but I didn't understand what these words were. They were long words 5 of them. I think 4 or 5. They came to about without that long. And I looked at them. They were confusing to me because even though I was staring at them, they didn't make any sense to me. They weren't like regular English words, things that I could comprehend what they were. Hey, my sister said hi. I was wondering if she was going to say something else. No, I guess that's it. She just wanted to say hi. So, um, anyway, I saw these lines, and so as I was looking at it, it was disturbing me to see these lines on this chalkboard, and I was trying to make a decision about what I was going to do about these lines on this chalkboard, and for some reason, I knew a teacher had put them on there, and it was a male teacher. He wasn't there in the room, but I had a feeling that he would be annoyed if I disturbed these lines on this chalkboard. But I was trying to make a decision about what I was going to do about this chalkboard, and I decided to pick up a chalkboard eraser and erase it. And that's what I did. I picked up a chalkboard eraser and I erased it. And I spent a great deal of time making sure those words were completely removed from the chalkboard. And that seemed to be an important thing in the dream, because all of a sudden that was the end of that vision. Okay. Um, and there was another vision I had, and it had to do with the bathroom, which was quite disgusting. But like I don't want to go into it. It was disgusting. Um, but bathrooms are important because bathrooms represent getting rid of waste, um, letting go of the past, getting rid of things that the body doesn't need. Um, Bathrooms can be a luxury room because you can bathe in luxury and have spa-like bath. It's about hygiene, getting clean, it's about baptism, if you will, being cleaned up, um, and like I said, getting rid of waste, things that your body doesn't need. So, um, anyway, what was interesting was another part of my dream that I had, which is the part of the dream I really want to get to, is um, I had an encounter with a childhood friend in the bathroom. It was like a public women's washroom I was in with my friend. Now, my friend had left the room for a moment, and when she came back into the bathroom, she gave me a hug. It was to say, "Goodbye. I'm letting you go. I'm letting you go now, and it's time to say goodbye, and I know you're going to do okay. You're good luck," kind of like a good luck kind of thing. That it was a hug of goodbye, and you're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. And then she left. Okay. Now, when I woke up from that dream, it was was not confusing, but it was interesting because I this woman, whose name, by the way, is Sharon. Her name is Sharon, and I didn't bother to look up her name. I should look up her name, but I put her name, the meaning of her name, in the description box. But in real life, okay, in my real life, Sharon was a childhood friend from the time I was born, basically, from about 1 years old to about 10 years old. We lived next door to each other in a housing development where my mother and her mother were best friends for many years. Um, Sharon, I guess, represents to me my childhood, but she doesn't just represent my childhood. She had a very strong personality, and I guess she represents childhood strength. She had a vibrant, big personality, and she always stood out in my mind as someone who's very strong, and and she was very important to me in my childhood. And I didn't realize how important. Now, I hadn't seen her in years and years and years and years. I haven't seen her. The last time I saw her, I hadn't seen her for years, from the time when we moved from that area in Vancouver to the suburbs. We saw her and her family maybe a couple of times after that, after we moved. And so that I hadn't seen her in years. But my mother kept in touch with her family, so we knew basically some of the things that were going on in their family. But I myself wasn't personally involved in what was going on. Um, and the next time I really saw her was at my mother's funeral a couple years ago. And for some reason, I knew I needed to see her. And when she was there at my mother's funeral, it was like something in my heart said, "Oh, she's here." So when I saw her, I was like, I couldn't help myself. I screamed, "Sharon!" And I ran into her arms, and she and I just gave each other just a big hug. And it was something I needed to know at my mother's funeral that Sharon was there. And I haven't seen her since, interestingly enough, since my mother's funeral. But it was that moment that I needed to connect with her. And so this is the first time I actually had a dream about her. And when I thought about what it meant to see Sharon in my dreams today or this morning, I thought, and it was in the bathroom, she was saying, "Give me a hug." It was like she was saying goodbye. I felt like she was saying, you've come to a place where you've got to let go of your childhood. And this is what came to my mind. This is the verse that came to me. First Corinthians, the love passage. Now, what's interesting about this passage, it uses the word, in this particular translation, it uses the word charity, which I think is actually a better interpretation than the word love. In our modern vernacular of understanding of love, it's an emotional feeling. I feel a certain way, so I must love you. Um, and if I don't feel that way, then I must not love you, which is, of course, wrong. It's a wrong way to think about what love is, because love is an action. Love, it maybe start with a feeling, but it's not where it ends. Love leads you, if you have a feeling, leads you to an action, leads you to do something. If you have love in you, you're going to not just stand back and wait for, it's like that the parable where Christ said, if you see um, somebody who's needing food and you say, "Be full and warm and do nothing about it," and when you see that they have a need for warmth or food, and you say, "Be warm and have food," be full, and you do nothing to help them, then you are a hypocrite, and you also are do not have there's no love in you. Why? Because love is an action. It's a feeling that leads to an action. It's a faith word. Okay? It's a verb. So charity actually is a very good translation for the word. So instead of using the word love, I'm going to use the word charity. 1 Corinthians 13:1. Though I speak with the tongues of men and angels and have not charity, I am a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so I could remove mountains and have not charity, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profits me nothing. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envies not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, does not behave unseemly, seeketh not her own, and is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoices not in iniquity, but rejoices in truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Charity never fails. But whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, and though as a child, and thought as a child. And when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now we know in part, but then we shall know even as I am known. We shall even then we, I shall know even as I am known. And now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three, but the greatest of these is charity. So charity is a mature person. Love, charity is a person of maturity who no longer has an immature mind that says, "Feed me, take care of me, I need your help." Not that it's wrong to be a child, because in order to be an adult, you have to first be a child. Isn't that correct? You have to start as a baby. The most needy of human nature, of humanity, is a baby, a newborn baby that needs everything done for it. Its diapers changed. Its body, be fed and to be pampered and to carried constantly, constant attention. You have to teach it. You have to grow it up in love and maturity. But when you become an adult, you let go of the childish things because now you are the mature being and you're teaching the child. You're no longer the child. You're now the adult. You're the one who's now giving and doing and taking care of the baby. And it's not wrong to be a child. It's where we all start. But it's wrong to stay a child when you're an adult. You have we have to when we're going into perfection because God is love. God is the epitome of this chapter. He is this chapter because God is love. He is everything that this is. And so when we are becoming what Christ wants us to become, we're becoming godlike. That means we're growing in maturity. And so my friend saying, going into this empty classroom, erasing the last little bit, but I don't understand that doesn't need to be there on that chalkboard, getting rid of that, letting go of childhood things, letting go of a childhood friend that represented childhood strength. And she was saying goodbye, and I was like, you're going to be fine now. You're going to be okay. It was an important dream. At least it was an important dream for me because it says that we are coming into maturity. We before when I was telling you about that glass darkly, that's a mirror. A glass darkly is a mirror. And we are looking at ourselves. It's a reflection of ourselves. And when we look in a mirror, we're looking at what needs to be like you're looking in a mirror in a bathroom. What are you doing? You're looking at your wrinkles, you're looking at your hair needs to be combed, your teeth need to be brushed, you need to do this, you need to do that. You're looking at yourself in order to find out what needs to be perfected, right? And so when you're looking through a glass clearly, you're no longer having to look at yourself to see if something needs to be taken care of. You're now looking forward. You're looking into the future. You're looking into what's ahead, not what's behind, which is what a mirror does. You're looking at yourself and what's behind. Now you're looking into a clear glass because you've been perfected. You're seeing God face to face. And when we see God face to face, we're seeing our own reflection because we're reflecting back the perfection of God. Okay? The perfection of God in us is what we're seeing because we're seeing God. Not saying that we are God, but we're going to see God's face because we're going to see Him clearly because we're becoming like Him. And that glass that's dark and we can only see ourselves and we can't see God clearly is so that we can take care of ourselves and what's behind us. Okay? Understand what I'm saying? I hope you do. So He's trying to mature us so that we can let go of the childhood neediness that is natural, but not natural in an adult. It's natural in a child, and it's right in a child, but as a child matures, you start giving that child more and more responsibilities. You don't just grow up a child, a 30-year-old child, and you're still changing his diapers. There's something wrong about that. Okay? When you get to be 30 years old, you got to have some maturity by that time to take care of your own business. You know what I'm saying? And that's what this passage is about. He's growing us up into maturity so that we are mature like God. That we are no longer thinking about our own interests, self-interest. We are mature enough and adult enough to know what to do, and now we can look out for other people properly. Okay, so that's the full maturity of love. It's an action. It's not a feeling like we like to think in the uh, modern sense of love. It is an action. So that was rather interesting, that dream about Sharon. Also, her name, by the way, let me see if I can keep this video going without stopping it. I didn't look up the meaning of her name, which I'm gonna set. Once I look it up, I'm gonna probably put it in the description box. If it means anything, I don't know. But Sharon itself um, is a uh, Sharon Valley Historic District. There's a place in Kings Hill, Sharon Valley, or Sharon Station, Rose of Sharon, is Sharon, Connecticut, in the United States. So there's a Sharon Valley in Connecticut, United States. Um, but Sharon is a plain. The plain of Sharon is Hebrew, section of the Mediterranean coastal plain and is most densely settled of Israel's natural region. It is roughly triangular in shape and extends about 55 miles north to south from the beach at Mount Carmel to the Yarkon River at Tel Aviv Yafo. Extremely fertile coastal plain between Joppa at the south and Mount Carmel on the north Sharon, and was noted for a flowery beauty. It was famous for its forests and lush vegetation, rich pastures, and David appointed his overseers for the herds that grazed there. The name Rose of Sharon first appeared in Hebrew. Okay, that's where I want to go to next. Um, in the Song of Solomon. Now that there's a few mentions of her name Sharon in the Bible, and it's the Hebrew shrub of the mallow family with rose, lavender, and white flowers. St. John's wort with dense foliage and large golden yellow flowers native to the southeastern Europe and Asia Minor, widely cultivated for ground cover. It's a flowering plant of unknown identity. Rose of Sharon are symbolic and spiritual meaning. The Rose of Sharon symbolizes love, beauty, and healing to both Jews and Christians, although their exact interpretation may differ. Some consider it a symbol for Christ. Jewish interpretation, the Rose of Sharon in Solomon's blah, blah, in Solomon's song refers to a beautiful young woman and feeling of love for her. Um, The phrase "the Rose of Sharon" is a biblical expression, though the identity of the plant referred to is unclear and is disputed among biblical scholars. It appears twice in the Bible. First, it appears in the Song of Solomon. The speaker, according to the James Version, I'll actually get to that in a second. In the Bible, the Rose of Sharon symbolizes beauty and is used in the book of the Song of Solomon. Okay, I think that's all I need to say about that. Oh, I did it. I actually was able to do that without turning off my camera, honestly. So, like I said, there was a couple of mentions of her name Sharon in the Bible. In fact, there are 6 verses that I found that were matched. First Corinthians, it talks about the Sharon, I guess the area of Sharon itself. First Corinthians, not First Corinthians, it's First Chronicles. Excuse me, First Chronicles, and it's talking about the descendants of Gad and that how they dwelt in Gilead, of in Bashan and in her towns, and all the suburbs of Sharon upon her borders. And Gilead, of course, is famous for the balm of Gilead, which is for healing. That's interesting. And then there's a second mention of it in the same book in First Chronicles 27, and it talks about, what is this about? This passage is about leaders of the tribe. And over the herds of the fields of Sharon was Sitrai, the Sharonite, and over the herds that were in the valley were Shaphat, the son of Adlai. Adlai? Anyway, it's talking about leaders, so it's talking about someone who's from Sharon. And then the one that's mostly mentioned, and the one that came to my mind, was the Rose of Sharon. For second song, the Song of Solomon's chapter 2, verse 1. I am the Rose of Sharon and the lily of the valleys. Now, I'm not sure whether this is the beloved or the if this is Solomon or the beloved bride that's speaking here. But nonetheless, here is the Rose of Sharon, and it's a reference to either Christ or the bride. I'm not sure. Songs, I am the Rose of Sharon and the lily of the valley. I am the lily among thorns, so is my beloved among the daughters. So it seems like the bride and the bridegroom are changing words here back and forth. Um, so anyway, there's that, and in this whole passage, of course, is that this love song between the two. the bride and bridegroom. Um, then there's another mention of Sharon in Isaiah 33, Isaiah 35, um, and Isaiah 65. So basically, talking about the area and the beauty and the abundance of Sharon. Um, let me actually read that one because I think that's quite beautiful. Let me see. Isaiah 35 2 is quite beautiful. It says, "The wilderness and solitary place shall be glad for them, and the desert shall rejoice, and the blossoms as the rose. It shall blossom abundantly and rejoice even with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given unto it, and excellency from Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the glory of the Lord and the excellency of our God." Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? That's beautiful. And then the other passage is Isaiah 65:10. "And I will bring forth the seed out of Jacob and out of Judah, and the inheritors of my mountains, and mine elect shall inherit it, and my servants shall dwell there. And Sharon shall be a fold of flocks, and the valley of Anchor, and a place for the herds to lie down in, for my people that have sought me." Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. So it's a couple of lovely passages where Sharon is mentioned. Now, interestingly enough, I was thinking about how this was um, pertaining Sharon itself, the Rose of Sharon pertained to my life because one of my most important dreams that I had when I was a young girl was my dream about, I beg your pardon, but I never promised you a rose garden. Now, um, I was thinking that maybe this is another sign that we are close to the end of our maturing process. At least this journey, this part of the journey, for the bride. Um, that we're closing to the end because that dream I had, one of the first dreams I had when I was a young girl, a young teenage girl, was, "I beg your pardon, I never promised you a rose garden." And at the end of that dream, where he had me going up and down these hills in a childish um, um, cart, one of those little red carts that you have a handle and you put things in when you're a kid and you put your toys or whatever and you're calling things, the little cart that you have, a little red cart. And in this dream, I was sitting in a little red cart, and the song "I Beg Your Pardon, But I Never Promised You a Rose Garden" was taking me up and down by being pulled by an invisible hand as I was being sitting in this cart and being led up and down these hills. Now that's an interesting, again, letting go of childhood. And at the end of the dream, um, I was stopped in front of a rose bush. And the rose became a very important symbol for me. It kind of brought to my mind this memory of mine, or at least a situation I had when I was working for a cleaning company. And this cleaning company sent me to this lady's home and to clean her house. She was an elderly lady who lived on her own. Her husband had died for some time, and she she was just a really really nice lady, really lovely lady. And when I would clean her house for at least, I think it must have cleaned her house at least 4 or 5 years. Um, and there was a picture on her wall that, well, I just loved. I just loved it. And it was a picture of roses. And it turned out to be that this picture had some history because her mother and father came from the east and came west to Vancouver. And but they came along with this. They brought this young woman along with them from the east to Vancouver. So this had to be 1900s, early 1900s. And so in this process, in their journey, they brought this one young woman along, and this young woman, as a thank you for allowing her to come with them on a journey, painted this lovely picture of roses. And so when it came time, and I always admired it. Every time I went to clean her house, I had to stop for a couple of minutes just to look at this picture and just admire it because I just loved it so much. So as the years, and like I said, I cleaned her house for about 5 years, and she, her daughter who lived in the States decided um, to move her closer to the States, to the border, and to a retirement home because she was blind. She couldn't see. And so in the process, they had to downsize. And of course, they had to get rid of everything because she was moving. And my last day to go clean her house, I came walking into her apartment. And on the floor was a picture on the floor. And I knew immediately that she was giving me this picture. Oh my goodness. I went crazy. I went crazy nuts. I couldn't believe she was giving it to me. I screamed like I was just won the lottery. I was, I was thrilled. And it's a picture of roses. And it's like I said, this picture was painted by this young woman who traveled with her parents out east, from east to the west coast. And I couldn't believe she would part with it to give it to me. And I'm going to show you too. I took a picture of it this morning. Oh, stop. So you can see it. I look at this every day, all day long. I get to sit there and look at this picture. It's this beautiful picture of roses. Oh, I just love this picture. And it's quite large. I mean, it's not a small picture. It's quite lovely. Anyway, I just thought I'd show that to you, and I thought, because that also came to my mind. And of course, it brought back to my mind about the dream. And at the end of the dream, I beg your pardon, but I never promised you a rose garden. The last thing I saw before I woke up from that dream was a rose bush. And so I'm just wondering if that's another sign that we are getting close to our maturity, um, or that we've actually gotten there. As my friend Sharon was giving me a hug, saying, "You're going to be okay now. You're okay." She represented this need I needed. She was the strength I needed to get through my childhood. That's what she represented. Wow. So isn't that exciting? Isn't that amazing? And then I had one other dream early this morning before I woke up at 6 o'clock, which is the last thing I'm going to tell you. And I shouldn't take me too long to get through this one. Let me just turn this off. Turn off. Um, last dream I had was a very strange, interesting dream. It wasn't very long, but it was interesting. I was standing in front of a house, and it was a very long house. It was quite large. It was like a mansion-sized house. But I was on one side of a house. Hard to describe it. I was up above. I actually do a picture. It's hard to describe. This is a very, very poor picture of what I saw. Okay, but I was up above this house. Okay, I was actually looking down on it from this angle. And the first thing I noticed, it was quite long. It was longer than what this picture depicts. It was in my picture. In my what I saw was it was a very long, wide house, and it was very large. It was mansion size house, probably larger than mansion size house. It was quite large. And I was seeing it from above first, and what I noticed first was what was up here. And what I saw was I the rest of the house looked like it was finished, but this part wasn't finished, and this part looked like a temple. Inside was these really, really large windows, really, really large, huge windows, and I could see into these windows and what looked like pillars. Pillars were standing in, but they weren't properly put in place. Like they were like it looked like it needed some architecture. It looked like it needed someone moving in, and that's what went to my mind was I think that needs some work. That needs some work so that it could be so we can move in properly. It needs to be renovated. It's got to be fixed. That's what came to my mind. That's what the first thing that came to my mind. I was trying to fix things. That's the interior decorator in me. I love interior decorating. I don't know if he told you that, but that's I mean I watch interior decorating shows. I love interior decorating shows. And one of the first things I wanted to be actually before couldn't figure out what wanted to do with my life. I did study interior decorating for a short period of my life, and because I love color and I love anything to do with history, and I love antiques. I'll tell you. So anyway, the first thing in my mind was when I saw this image was, and I was looking into this area here. I was thinking that needs work. These two floors, these were done. Okay, these were finished, and they were furnished, and there was a family living in there. But the upper room, this upper part of this mansion, looked unfinished, and it would needed renovating, as far as I was concerned. And I could see that there were pillars that some of them were leaning, and they weren't put up properly, and some were upright, and others were, like I said, leaning or on the floor. And I was thinking that needs work. That needs to be renovated. We need to get some carpenters in there and fix it up. And then it came as the view as I was happening, as I was coming down and looking and coming down to the ground level of this house, and this very, very long house. And I was looking in the windows on one side of the house. Let's say, I can't tell you which side it was. It was this side, other side of the house. I guess that would be the, can't tell you what side of the house it was. It was this side. So on this side of the house, there were two levels on this side of the house, and they had also very big windows. So I could look into the house, and I could see that it was beautifully furnished, and there was lots of, lovely things. It looked well lit. It was lit up, and I knew a family was already moved in there. I knew a family actually owned this house, and they were living in the two bottom levels of the house. But strangely enough, half of the house wasn't being lived in. And I'll tell you about in a second. So as I was walking around, I came down to the ground level, and I was looking into these windows of this beautiful house, and I began to walk around to the other side of the house, to this side of the house. I was walking around this side of the house, and what looked like a rural area or a beautiful mansion country area suddenly became a cosmopolitan cityscape. I was suddenly in the city as I was walking around the other side of the house. And when I got around the other side of the house, I realized what had happened was that the family was living in this part of the house, whereas this part of the house was a library. They had converted this part of the house, which was very large, into a library, a public library. And the city, it's like I was suddenly in the city as I was walking around the side of the house. And what was really strange was I knew that I was looking into this library because these big windows, and I could see what was inside, and there were all these books. There was shelves and shelves of books, like in the library, but there were all these books on the floor. And there was a person standing behind all these books on the floor, and there were people in this library, and it's like they were bidding on the books. And this it became like a book fair. And um, so I walked around the side of the building, and what was really, really weird, this is the weird part of this dream, if it wasn't weird enough, is that everyone was wearing costumes. It was like I was walking into ancient Rome. Some people were wearing like togas and Roman costumes. Um, and I began to wonder if they were actually costumes because it was like this people from all the time, but it was like mostly ancient people, people from the Roman times to the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, and they not Renaissance so much, but the Middle Ages. And they were men and women all walking into this library. And first it was just a trickle, then it became this mass of people walking into this. As I had walked around to the front side of this library and I got to the door, I decided to go in too to see what was going on. And what I was really noticing, not so much the books, but the people were all wearing these ancient clothes. And so I didn't stay very long in the library. I actually started leaving. As I was leaving, all these people were just flooding in and out of this library. It's like it had just been opened or something. And people were going in to get this information. And that was basically the end of the dream. As I was leaving and I was looking at all these interesting ancient folks going into this library. And what came to my mind was that some kind of library had been opened, that this house, this mansion that belonged to this family was a treasure trove of mysteries and knowledge and wisdom and theologies and ideas, and it was suddenly being open to these people who had no access to it before, and now they were flooding into this library to get this ancient or this knowledge that they didn't have access to, and they were just like, oh, coming in droves to get it. So it was very interesting. It was an interesting dream. And what it means exactly, I'm not sure. Just maybe it means in the spirit realm things that had been the mystery or an unknown to the our ancient ancestors. Maybe they're finally having getting um, their hands on some of this knowledge. I don't know. It means going back to the past. It's like when the Lord says you have to go back in order to go forward. Sometimes we have to allow our past to heal our past. We have to let the past have access to what it didn't have access to so that we can heal our future. And maybe that has something to do with that dream I had about all these images coming at me and flying past me as they were coming towards me and then flying past me as though I was going back in the past. So maybe it has something to do with the Lord healing the past and giving them some information that they need in order for us to go forward. Interesting. I know that the top part represented the temple, represented the third temple. That's why it's above and it looked like a temple and there were pillars in it. So interesting. Anyway, I think that's all I'm going to say about this. I think that they pretty much speak for themselves. But yeah, interesting dreams. Wow. Oh, and by the way, a little confirmation. We had an interesting little thing. Remember I told you the dream about where I was sitting on my bunk bed and I was looking out and I was seeing the sun and it was doing something funny and then my two sisters came into the room and they were helping me clean a room. Well, it kind of happened. It kind of happened. We had a little minor flood going on down here yesterday. Was it yesterday? No, 2 days ago. And I said, "Help!" And they all came down. I mean, my two sisters came down, and we were cleaning up without complaining for probably the first time, complaining about having to clean up something that we didn't expect to have to do. And so the three of us were working on cleaning up the hallway area that had gotten flooded. And it was kind of immediately came back to my mind was this dream about the three of us working on this room, cleaning it up. So it was kind of a funny little confirmation. But anyway, I think that's all I need to say on this. Yeah, interesting times and interesting dreams. So I think I'm gonna leave it at that. And so God bless. If you haven't given your life to Jesus Christ, there's still opportunity. And God is waking up the middle class. He's waking up the lukewarm right now. They have been. That was another thing that keeps coming to my mind is that movie, The Divergent, again keeps coming back to my mind about how the last group that needs to wake up is the lukewarm. Those people who've been comfortable, and it's like you have to become uncomfortable in order to wake up. I mean, in order to have your eyes open to what's really going on in the world, you have to be made uncomfortable. It's just unfortunately one of these human things about human nature. In order for us to move forward, we've got to be made uncomfortable about our situation. And maybe that's what's happening with, uh, Lord is allowing us to be uncomfortable with the way the world is in order for us to wake up and to grow up. Anyway, that's all I need to say for now. Um, God bless and have a great day.